And formally welcome you to the start of the call. So welcome everyone. Right, let me share my screen. Just engage my brain on the best way to do that. Right, here we are. Okay, which I've now done, so that should be on your devices. So the call this week, I'm just going to touch on the agendas for the forthcoming ICANN DNS Abuse Day and DNS Symposium, just to sort of showcase those, given that both have recently been published. I think the Symposium only in the last week or so, the Abuse Day a few days prior. And then, as always, we'll roll through some of the recent sort of developments in the news, remind you of some forthcoming events, etc. And I suspect we will have ample time for any other business, should you have any this week. It'll be a more sort of more relaxed call this week, I think. As is the sort of the end of August, so there's less stuff about this week. But let's roll straight in. So a reminder first, particularly for those of you that have been on leave for part of August and are just back. Coming up the next Monday, we've got the first of 4 days of DNS related activity. That is the DNS Abuse Day, which is the ICANN event, followed by on Tuesday the 5th, as you'll see in a second, we've got the ICANN DNS Symposium, and then the 6th and 7th are the DNS OARC event or meeting, all back to back in the same venue in Da Nang in Vietnam, just as a reminder. And we talked about the agenda for the OARC meeting a couple of weeks ago. Well, I will just briefly sort of go back to that just as a refresh, for, particularly for anyone that, as I say, has been away for part of the month. So what you'll see on the screen then is day one of the 4 days of DNS related activity, which is the DNS Abuse Day, which is particularly, I believe, sort of targeting registries, registrars, although others will potentially be present. And in fact, looking at the registration list for the OARC meeting, I've got 145 people registered to attend so far, so it's sort of picked up a bit over the last couple of weeks or so, of which just under 100 are down to be in person. And I'm assuming most of those people will attend all 4 days in person, rather than just going in to Vietnam for the OARC meeting, or possibly some might do that. So there should be around 100 people at the venue, I imagine, for the duration. Anyway, this isn't really my area of expertise, although I will be attending, so I will be learning a lot. But so I won't really comment over much on the agenda content, other than put it up there for your perusal. You'll see not too many sessions compared to some of the other events that are taking place. So just a couple in the morning, 3 in the afternoon, and then, as all the best events do, we're sort of wrapping up the day with a welcome cocktail reception, which is absolutely the best way to finish a day, in my opinion. I haven't really got anything else to add on the Abuse Day, but I will pause just in case anyone does have any observations that perhaps is more au fait with the subject matter than I am, in case there is anything that jumps out for you, or you want to comment on anything. And if not, I will continue. Actually, I realise I can't see the chat, so somebody may have put something in the chat. No, they haven't. Right, fine. Anyway, as I say, not my area of expertise currently, but I'll put that up for your information. And then on the Tuesday, that's the annual ICANN DNS Symposium. I've highlighted a few of the sessions, which are sort of caught my eye. So again, as you can see, it runs through from 9 through to 5. At least that's the plan, with a variety of sort of presentations. Ones that caught my eye include in the morning a presentation from Sean Lloyd on the alternative TLD, a topic which has certainly attracted a lot of debate in the IETF working group. When they talked about the alt TLD and the use of that. So I'll be really interested to see how that discussion develops. And then followed, sort of changing the subject matter quite considerably, potentially with a presentation from Raphael Somes on improving DNS resilience, which is always an interesting topic. And then sort of later in the morning, Vittorio talking about DNS-based identifiers for instant messaging. And then we've got first of 2 sessions on DNSSEC. You can see one before lunch, one after. And DNSSEC is one of the themes that also is reflected in the OARC meeting over the next 2 days. Plenty of other interesting content sort of through the day, but those are the ones that caught my eye. So again, I'll pause in case anyone's got any comments. I see Vittorio's on the call, so he may want to say something about his session, but anyone else also feel free to comment as well if you wish.
Well, yeah, this was sort of an idea to provide some content for this conference, and it won't take half an hour. But I mean, I don't know if anyone here is also following the MIMI working group at the IETF on interoperable instant messaging services. And now one of the problems that are on the table is how do we discover which services each user has, and possibly starting from identifiers, which could be the traditional email address, phone number, but could also be like something new, specific for instant messaging. And so one of the ideas that I put on the table is, why don't we do that via DNS? And the presentation will be mostly about, well, I think there will be an initial recap for people that are not following me, so on what is interoperable instant messaging, what's happening, why it's happening now, and so, and then a brief discussion of the various proposals that are on the table in terms of discovery of identifiers, and maybe a bit of discussion on how this could be done by DNS. By the way, if people are following me, there's an interim in 2 days, and Discover will be on the agenda for that, even if, as I understand it, there will not be a discussion of the actual proposals, but just of the set of requirements. That's it.
So when is the interim session, Vittorio?
In a couple of days, like on Wednesday in the European evening.
Oh, okay. So next Wednesday?
Yeah. Before
that'll be exciting for anyone that's also also attending the sort of symposium at OARC. Then sort of some diary juggling, which would be fun.
Yeah, no. Anyway, it's this Wednesday, and then so on the 30th, and then they want to have another session, which could be in the week of the symposium, or maybe the other one. So we don't know.
Oh, okay, right, fine, good. All right, well, thanks for that, Vittorio. I'm sure that will be an interesting sort of presentation, anyway, to sort of see what the view is on the use of DNS identifiers for instant messaging. Certainly, the MIMI sessions. So I think the pair of sessions at the last IETF meeting, I think, threw up some interesting challenges. So further work required, I believe, because of certainly the implications of removing some of the metadata. Will make pros and cons of that, I think, will be one way of putting it. Anyway, so yeah, you can see the agenda for the Symposium. I mentioned also we got a couple of DNS sec sessions. Peter, did you have a comment on all or any of that?
Sorry for interrupting. I tried to raise my hand, but I failed. About Vittoria's talk about the DNS based identifiers for instant messaging. I have like a ton of questions already, and I was going to start asking them, but then I thought maybe Vittoria could come and talk about it here as well, if you had a.
Yeah, I mean, by the way, it's fine if you don't want to do it. At this point in time is a very, very just basically the concept, because we still in the working group haven't really defined what we want to achieve with the discovery part. I mean, it's part of a quest to keep the DNS relevant in a way. So I think that if new procedures for associating some information with some network topology information are introduced, we should try to foster the use of the DNS for that as well. But there might not be a lot to tell for the moment. But yeah, if we want to discuss this in the future, I'm happy to do that.
Cool. Thanks.
Okay, yeah, good, very good point. I think or suggestions certainly. I think on that to see if Vittoria's happy to do that. So yeah, thanks for that, Peter. That's an excellent idea. Okay. So again, I just pause in case anyone's got any other sort of comments on the symposium. Which, you know, I think the agenda is reasonably self-explanatory in terms of what's being covered. So quite wide-ranging, given it's only running for one day, but should sort of raise a number of sort of good points that warrant further consideration. Okay, just as a reminder, and I won't dwell on these as we talked about them a couple of weeks ago, but I mentioned that in the same venue, the following 2 days will incorporate the next OARC meeting. So just a quick reminder, agenda-wise, you got so for the Wednesday. Again, that's my highlighting from the discussion from a couple of weeks back, but you'll see so there's a number of DNSSEC related sort of sessions in there amongst other things on the Wednesday, and then rolling through to the Thursday again with another sort of DNSSEC related sort of topic, at least tangentially. Well, I think that might be coincidental in that case, plus one on the potential use of the DNS as a denial of service amplifier, and then finally, which will segue neatly into one of the next points, there's time reserved at the end of Thursday for a number of lightning talks for people that are present on site. So I think some of the presentations will potentially be given by people who aren't in Da Nang, certainly for the OARC and presumably for the other days, but certainly for the OARC meeting, they want to restrict the lightning talks purely to those who are on site, presumably because of the logistics are simpler, given that you're limited to 5 to 10 minutes for each of those presentations. Okay, so that's really it in terms of the Symposium, DNS Abuse Day, and OARC meetings. Again, in case anyone missed it last time, if you attend the meeting, there's no registration fee because it's done under the auspices of ICANN. So if you attend remotely, my understanding is it's free completely, other than your time. If you attend in person, you've obviously got to pay to get there and for the hotel, albeit there's quite a decent discount on the hotel rate. But at least there's no additional registration fee, so do bear that in mind. And it's a single registration via the ICANN site for any or all 3 of the events. Final point on that: if you are attending remotely, do remember. Sorry, if you're attending in person, rather, you will potentially need a visa, which you can get electronically. It's pretty quick. I think it was within the day when I applied, but so make sure you do that if required, depending on your country. And I can see the DNS abuse day. Yes, that's an ironic comment, Peter, in the chat about DNS abuse day. Sounds like a day when people get together to abuse the DNS, coming from the first DNS abuse ambassador, who presumably it's your day job to promote abuse of the DNS.
Yeah. I thought you know.
Anyway, yes, let's swiftly move on. So that's just a plug. If you haven't already registered and are thinking of doing so, don't forget to do so quickly to attend either in person or remotely for any of those. Right, let's segue from there into just some of the news headlines and a few other bits and pieces. So not so much news. I think that this week, it's still being August. Things have just quietened down little. So there's some, as you can see, some new software updates from Power DNS. The DNS terminology internet draft, the latest version has been released from the DNS Ops working group. There's some sort of, quite useful stuff that Echo are proposing to do to coincide with the ICANN 78 event, and then a few other things you can see. NIST with first draft standards on post-quantum quantum cryptography, and then the last one I mentioned, the fifth one down on the screen. If you're looking at that. There was some commentary on the proposed Global Digital Compact, critiquing it for, broadly speaking, including the tech community within civil society from some people within the tech community, which you can see the post on that on APNIC. But I noted a sort of a counter view on that from the Internet Governance Project, not so apologies for the typo on the slide. So there's a link to that as well, just to get the sort of counter view to the commentary that came out from some people within the tech community. So if that's of interest to you, that'll be worth a look. And then a few other bits and pieces that caught my eye. I won't go through all of these, but those of you more on the policy side, so the Digital Services Act became legally enforceable within the last few days. So there's sort of a short video excerpt from Terry Breton on that, which you may wish to take a look, plus some comments from Politico on some of the obligations for the tech community as a consequence. And Echo again will also put out some thoughts on it as well. More comments on the impact the ransomware is having, which seems to be well, both according to some people, it's already the biggest sort of cybersecurity threat, and it's sort of continuing to grow. So it's the biggest threat, and it's getting worse. And then changing the sort of subject matter completely, was an interesting piece I saw on sort of funder influence over digital rights non-profits. Just talking about that as a potential threat to the multi-stakeholder model, if the threat of corporate sort of takeover of civil society or parts of it, and that diluting the benefits of multi-stakeholder model. So those of us that are taking interest on the policy side, that's a useful read, I thought. Quick reminder on some of the sort of looming deadlines. So I mentioned about the lightning talks. Apparently that's open up to the 7th, presumably unless sufficient people step forward and they decide they've got enough interest and don't need it anymore. But in theory, at least, if you're, as I mentioned earlier, you need to be in person in Da Nang to do that. But when I checked earlier today, the link was still open for people to put forward proposals. So if that's of interest, you still have time. Today is the closing date if you want to offer up presentations for NANOG 89. So I presume that'd be midnight US time, but I haven't checked that. Some point today anyway. Some point today somewhere in the world, depending on time zones. So if you haven't put forward a proposal, but intend to do so, you've got maybe a few hours left to do that. Also, we discussed this, I think, a couple of weeks back. The DNS Research Federation are offering up funding up to, I think it's $10,000 for various research proposals. The deadline's middle of this week for that. If you haven't already put your proposal in. And then a few things coming up over the next few days, so well, 3 weeks as well. So on various other topics. And then in terms of forthcoming events, I think we've probably laboured the point somewhat on those coming up at the start of September, which unsurprisingly they're next on the list. One I've highlighted on the slide is the European Commission's High-Level Group on Internet Governance, which has got a meeting scheduled for the morning of 29th September. There's only a placeholder at the moment, so still waiting for agenda details, but that's coming up at the end of next month, and has usually got quite an interesting sort of range of topics. I presume it may well touch briefly on the IGF meeting as that follows a week or so later, as well as various other topics, so we have to wait and see what's on that agenda. The other thing I'll also mention, in case you missed it, is registration is now open for the IETF meeting in Prague in November, IETF 118. It's the early bird rate, or I can't remember, but they've changed the name from early bird to super early rate or something. But anyway, it's the early bird rate is available at the moment. So if you're thinking of registering, there's an advantage financially from registering now rather than leaving it for a few weeks. And then finally, a reminder, we don't have a call next week because of the time zone difference with Vietnam. So we'll pick up again. I'm hoping, assuming that it still works for Giampaolo, with a presentation on extended DNS errors and structured error data on the 11th of September.
Yes, it works. Will be short, so not a full call because the argument is not huge, but yes, thanks.
Perfect. Okay, so that's no longer tentative. I'll not take the slide accordingly. Fantastic. Thanks, Giampaolo. Okay, I think that's pretty much everything from me. So as I mentioned at the start, a shorter call this week. So let me just stop sharing my screen. Press the right button. And just open up and see, does anyone have anything else that you want to raise on the call? So any other business, and if you do, raise your hand, put something in the chat, or just unmute, whichever is easiest for you. So any comments on anything that I've sort of just sort of briefly covered, or indeed anything else totally unrelated that you may wish to mention? I'll give you a moment just to think about that, or type in the chat if that's the easiest option for you. I'm not seeing any hands raised currently. Just give you another few seconds to do so. Nope, I'm not seeing anything in the chat either. So I'm assuming in that case there's nothing this week. So let's call a halt there. Hopefully, well, I would say hopefully, I will look forward to seeing at least some people from the call at the various sort of DNS events next week. So it'd be good to see a few people in person for a change. And maybe chat in a more informal atmosphere, so that should be fun. Otherwise, have a fantastic week, everyone. Hope that the call was useful today. As I say, look forward to seeing some of you next week, and otherwise catch up on this call in 2 weeks' time. So enjoy the week, everyone.